the travel is great. I mean, I've seen Rome, Athens, Istanbul, Jerusalem, Alexandria. I've been to the pyramids of Giza. I visited Japan. I visited the Philippines. That's part of being in the Navy.
Welcome to this special series of the EdUp Canada Podcast, Sea of Opportunities. In these short episodes, we're exploring two big questions. What do careers actually look like in the Royal Canadian Navy? And how has the Navy set up these men and women who serve our nation for success after leaving their career in the Navy? And to get these answers, we're joined by the crew members of the HMCS St. John's Halifax, who are going to talk about their own experiences and their own careers. And we're also going to talk to the men and women who serve these boats onshore to ensure they have all the support they need as they travel the world. It's like being on the ship while you're in your home. So without further delay, we bring you this special episode of the EdUp Canada Podcast, Sea of Opportunities. Welcome back to the Sea of Opportunities podcast. I'm joined now by Petty Officer Mr. Conacher, who is joining us today. He is a sonar operator on board the ship HMCS St. John's, halfway across the Atlantic, headed to Europe on a 6-month deployment. Are you off for 6 months, sir? We just interviewed somebody who was on 3 months.
No, I'm on for all 6. At least that was my last plan. I was passed on, yep.
Well, that's a good way of saying it, though, because you're not quite sure always, are you, right? Your life changes.
The one consistency is that change is the norm for what we do. Things can change at any time.
So you're not one of the youngest crew members?
No. I would imagine I'm one of the oldest ones.
What's that like for family life and home life? And what are the challenges that you face?
As a single individual, challenges are just mainly maintaining my property, but that's about it. And keeping in touch with my extended family, my brother and cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff like that.
Technology on board has made that easier, though, as the career has gone on.
Yes. Huh? Yes. My first deployment, you had emails, and then we would pull into port and they would set up like a large Wi-Fi in each port. And it was not inexpensive to do that so that the crew could, back then it was Skyping back home to the family or just stuff like that. Now we have quality of life satellites across the Atlantic and on deployments, so we can speak to family and friends at any time we want, depending on operational necessities. There may be times where all that gets shut down and you just have to power through. But it's entirely different. Like usually my first deployment, there's lots of emails back and forth. Now it's texts and stuff like that.
So one of the things that we're talking about on this series, so we're interviewing close to 20 people on board. I'm trying to find almost every role on board because we're talking about training, we're talking about recruitment, retention. What does it take to get people into the Navy? What are the skills you need to bring to get there? Tell me about your own journey. Why did you join the Navy?
Well, I joined in my late 20s. At the time, I reached a point in my life where I realized I needed that joining the military made sense to me and that I felt I could handle. Chose the Navy. At the time, it was called TASUP, but it's since become Sonar Op, just because I liked the challenge, the idea of looking at a puzzle and trying to figure out what it's saying is something I enjoy. Being a Sonar Op is not, you spend a lot of time in front of a computer screen, and when we are operating in an ASW environment, it tends to be very slow is the best way to put it. So it's not super exciting. I just enjoyed that challenge, and then just the career's gone from there. I mean, I've been in 22 years, definitely got at least another 3 years on me, maybe another 8, depending on how I feel in 3 years, at which point, and I've had the opportunity to see the world. I've done a couple tours. As a sonar op, we have the opportunity to do what we call outcans in the U.S. I've done 2 tours of that. Just learned a great deal about various positions, and I enjoy being a sonar operator. So
one of the things that we're trying to talk about our graduates too of our colleges is the opportunities in the Navy, because we've just interviewed a couple of cooks and the energy and excitement about being in the Navy was incredible from the 2 individuals that we talked to, and their pride was just came right out of them. But we recently did a survey in one of our colleges, and we found about 70% of the students were interested in hearing from the Navy as a career path. It's been a great career for you, right? Very rewarding.
Oh, yes. The travel is great. I mean, I've seen Rome, Athens, Istanbul, Jerusalem, Alexandria. I've been to the pyramids of Giza. I visited Japan. I visited the Philippines. That's part of being in the Navy. As a sonar op, you get to see or understand a part of the world as a whole from a different perspective. Submarines are one of the fastest growing weapons platforms out there right now, and they're getting more and more quieter, which means they're getting more dangerous. So our job is really important when we do it. Fortunately, I take pride in being the best I can be at it. And as anybody in the military says, we train to do the job and hope we never actually have to do the job for real, because then things have gotten very serious. But for joining the Navy as a whole, there's challenges. I mean, you are away from home, but there are advantages if you're looking at a career in the military. As I like to say, we travel with access to a warm bed, a hot shower, and hot food everywhere we go. For the most part, sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but mostly we get to do that, unlike our Army brethren who tend to spend more time in the field. My first 3 years in the Navy, I was at sea a lot and not necessarily deployed, just doing training cruises, presence cruises, and that can grind on people sometimes, especially with people with family. But if you can embrace that and see it as an opportunity, the travel alone, the chance to see the world, but you also get to see what it's like to be in the middle of the Atlantic in a nice, both when the weather and sea state is really bad and when the sea state's really calm and you can see wonderful things. I've sat on one of our passive sensors and listened to dolphins and whales for an hour or so at a time, and it's an entirely different experience because you get to hear them in for real. And then you learn beyond the trade all the other skills. And I find that I firmly believe that if I was faced with a fire at home, I could deal with it right then and there, whereas a lot of people not so much. I've had a incident at a house where the water line broke, and I quickly knew how to deal with an ingress of water so it didn't further damage the house. That's kind of training that you don't necessarily get outside of the military. And then the Navy, you definitely get it because, we travel with our house. So we need to be able to deal with any damage the ship takes or any problems.
It's the only warm bed in the world that comes with a seatbelt, right?
That too. Yeah, that I've had to use that a few times. That the weather, the sea state can be interesting.
I hear it's a good sail so far. You had a little bit of iffy weather a couple of days ago, but it's been a good sail so far.
Yeah, it got choppy a couple of days ago, and then the Med through the summer and fall is generally pretty tame. Med's pretty tame as it is, although when it gets angry quickly. The trip back in November, December, back across the Atlantic could be an interesting trip.
Could be an interesting ride. So everybody we've talked to has a second job. So you're a sonar operator, but you've got other roles on board, don't you?
So I'm also what's called duty petty officer. When we're alongside either in Halifax, I'm responsible as the senior NCO for the day. So when the crew goes home for the day, I stay on board. I coordinate any emergency stations that when you do fires, floods, casualties, spills of any chemicals. My job is to deal with that. I describe it to this way: is my job is when it comes to stuff like that is to know what to do when things go wrong. Most of the crew's already trained on this. We train constantly on that. The other stuff I do. So there's the senior sonar op part is I do a lot of the admin, mainly focusing on material and personnel, make sure our equipment is working, getting the repairs and parts we need, speaking with our repair combat system engineering technicians who maintain our gear so that gets fixed. And then personnel, I'm making sure my personnel are getting trained properly. They're getting the rest they need. If I have to land them due to coursing or any other reasons, I make the arrangements. I speak with chain of command, go, this is my recommendation. I do the admin to get them to where they need to be. As you become more senior in your trade, administration becomes more and more important because you're making sure your junior members, your subordinates are getting the support they need so they can do the best job. And if they're doing their best job, it makes your job that much easier.
It's a big operation. The reason we've decided to do this series is to let our graduates know, let our students know there's opportunities in the Navy that are crucial to serve our country, to protect our country, but also are great careers. So just a couple of seconds here about your family is 230 people for the next 6 months, isn't it?
Pretty much, yep. And you'll get to know a lot of people. One of the jobs I had 6-7 years ago was called regulating petty officer. It's a rank a petty officer second class usually does. And in that position, you get to know everybody because you are the coxswain's assistant and you are responsible for bunking and things like that. So that job we have a lot of secondary jobs. I enjoyed that job, did it for a year and then turned it over to another PO2 so they get the experience. But you pick up secondary jobs all the time. Sometimes it's dealing with comms equipment or working with, maybe if we don't have a public affairs officer, you can assist with that or jobs like that. There's other jobs that are more security related, dealing with confidential books, stuff like that. I've done many of those jobs. Right now, some other people are doing it. Who knows, in a couple of months, I might pick some like those jobs up. That's fine with me.
Yeah, we like to talk about that because there's just so many opportunities on board. And we've named this Sea of Opportunities because we want to talk, there's just so many places you can take your career in the Navy. And we're actually going to take some time interviewing people who are on shore supporting the ship as well, because they're just as important in everything that you've got going on.
Oh, yes. Without them, we pull into port and our fuel and food and repair parts are there and our mail. That's like, even though we have all the quality of life things, the satellite comms, you'd be surprised how much people enjoy getting a physical letter from their loved ones or packages, especially care packages. People enjoy that. So we have a port coming up in a few days. May get some mail there, probably not a lot, but the next couple of port visits, the mail will start to accumulate, and then we'll get it's interesting watching as we sort and deliver them to the mail, the joy people take in getting mail from their loved ones.
I was talking to Vice Admiral Topshee on my podcast, my other podcast, and he was chatting about how he used to number the letters when he started in the Navy because he had to read them in order because they might not catch up to you right away.
Oh yeah.
But the world's changed now. We're doing this by internet connection and you're in the middle of the Atlantic.
Completely changed.
So 2 things we're asking people to kind of finish up on. Is there anything you want to say about your experience in the life of the Navy or why someone should join the Navy or why you did? And then secondly, is there anything you want to say to anybody in particular back home? Just a bit of a message as you head off into the next more serious time. Once you get across the Atlantic, you're into your mission, right?
Yeah. For career-wise, just the Navy as a whole, if you go into the recruitment office, take a serious look at what each job does to sort out what you really want to do. Even though I'm a sonar op, I'm also a sailor. So there's there's parts of the ship's evolutions that everybody does, and you are part of that. And then for just, my friends and family, my brother Ron, who's in Toronto with his partner, and my good friend Alex, who's back in Halifax, say hi to them. Let them know that, things are going well and it's just the beginning of the trip, and I'll see them in December.
Well, we appreciate your service on behalf of everybody here standing on dry land. We wish you fair winds and following seas and a safe journey home, but thank you for your service to our nation and good luck in the mission ahead. We look forward to seeing you back in Halifax in December.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to this special episode of the EdUp Canada Podcast, Sea of Opportunities. If you like this episode, I hope you leave a review for us as it helps more people to discover the show. If you're interested in a career in the Navy, you can click on the link in the show notes to learn all about the Naval Experience Program. Thanks for learning with us.